Now is the time.
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 Just imagine, 5 years from now, the following things are true about Fort Wayne. Marriages and families are stronger than ever. Human trafficking is almost non-existent. Unplanned pregnancies, choosing life, it's at an all-time high. Homelessness is drastically reduced. Healthcare quality and access are increased significantly. Business owners now actually represent the racial demographic of our city, and the level of hope among our neighbors, friends, and family is beyond measure. And then someone asks, how do you explain this? And your answer, along with all of our amazing citywide initiatives and good works, was a heart of prayer. Right at the core of our city, the power of prayer.
Fort Wayne has a legacy of prayer. For example, we have a group of women I have come to respect so highly, known as the Fort Wayne Intercessors, who have been praying for decades for a move of God in our city and region. They are a big reason we are seeing a citywide movement forming in our region.
Isaiah 62 says, Jerusalem, I have posted watchmen on your walls.
They will pray day and night continually. Take no rest, all you who pray to the Lord.
Fort Wayne has a long history of pastors and leaders praying and building relationships together.
We are seeing so many exciting things take place in our city and region, yet we know the importance prayer will have to the success of everything we do.
And so with great excitement, we are announcing Fort Wayne is going to have a citywide prayer presence taking place 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, starting in October, as we have a 24/7 prayer room in the heart of our city.
One of the most exciting initiatives in Northeast Indiana is the revitalization of the historic GE building called Electric Works. Not only will this be a hub for our community in areas of business, innovation, education, health and wellness, and more, but Electric Works will be the location of this citywide prayer room as well.
It is an honor for us at Electric Works to support this citywide initiative. We believe this prayer room fits with how this redevelopment project will bless our city.
We are excited that businesses, nonprofits, and other organizations, along with churches, can all partner together to help this vision be successful.
This will be a place of unending prayer, worship, and intercession as people in our community flow into this prayer room before work, during their lunch hour, after work, and all throughout both day and night. Always open, never closed.
What will also be so exciting about the citywide prayer room is that it won't be led by one church, one leader, or even one organization, but rather by more than 100 churches and organizations leading it together. We don't believe this prayer room is the end goal, but the beginning, as it will inspire more prayer throughout our city and even multiply more prayer rooms in churches and in locations all throughout the region. This will be like a centralized bonfire that helps multiply the torches of prayer all over the city.
The Church of Fort Wayne has had a level of unity not every city experiences. This is what makes a collaborative prayer room possible for us to do together.
While there are countless examples of division in our city, region, and even country, God's heart is for His people to be united together as we actively seek for Him to bless our country in ways that mend hearts, build bridges, eradicate homicide, and strengthen families.
Jesus tells us in John 13 that our love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. God is doing something significant among us as He is bringing us together. And we believe now is the time to love Fort Wayne.
Now is the time.
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 Now is the time. Now is the time.
Now is the time.
El tiempo es ahora.
Now is the time.
To love Fort Wayne, to pray Fort Wayne.
Seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. Jeremiah 29:7.
Well, good morning. What amazes me about this video is how much representation we had in the body of Christ. So many different denominations, amazing nonprofits, incredible ministries, Christian businessmen, Christian CEOs, and the list goes on. In total, in that video, there were about 60 different leaders across all sectors of our community and across all sectors of the church. And here was the clear theme. We must come together and pray because the time is now. In fact, let me just say it again, as we just heard in the video, the time is now. And let me tell you why the time is now. Because we don't have much time left. From a human perspective, it may feel like we have a lot of time here on earth left. And regardless of how old you are, just think about how much time you might have left. But as soon as we begin to see what God sees, it changes our perspective. And we go from a human perspective to an eternal perspective, and time then becomes different as we see things the way God sees them. Let me be vulnerable with you. I have to admit that too often I view life from a human perspective and not an eternal perspective. I think I have all the time in the world, when in reality I have very little time left here on the earth. And this is why viewing this video and seeing the wide lens of representation of the body of Christ and them all just saying the same thing is so compelling to me. We need unity in the body of Christ. And if we're looking at it through the eyes of God, we know that there's an urgency to the unity. The time for unity is now because there's so much conflict and division in our world. The time for unity is now because there's so much separation among the denominations. The time for unity is now because there's so much brokenness and pain in the world. The time for unity is now because there's so many people dying lost and without Jesus. The time for unity is now because Jesus is returning and he wants his bride ready. And so today we start a 3-part series called Unity Around Mission. My name's Chris Norman, and I'm so glad to be with you online today. And so we start this new 3-part series called Unity Around Mission. And we aren't talking about unity just for unity's sake. We're talking about unity around Jesus and around the mission that he has given us to impact the world and to help people believe and follow Jesus. Here's what James 4:14 says about the brevity of life. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. When we consider the brevity of life, the shortness of life compared to eternity, it has a tendency to force us to reevaluate our priorities, to focus on the things that are most important. And when we compare the few years of this earthly life compared to an eternity with Jesus in the life to come, we recognize there are some things God calls us to do right now that we'll do with him forever and ever in eternity. And there are some things Jesus is calling us to do right now that we will not do forever and ever in eternity. For example, we know that God has called us to worship him and live for him in the here and now. And we know that we'll do that forever and ever in eternity. We also know that Jesus has called us to love one another here and now. And we know that we will do this not only here and now, but we'll also do that forever and ever in eternity. However, we also know that God has called us to reach people and help them believe and follow Jesus in the right now, and yet that is something that we will not do in the life to come forever and ever. Because everyone living in the new heaven and the new earth in the future will already be followers of Jesus. There will no longer be sin or brokenness or pain or unbelief. All things will be restored. And so as we think about our shorthand of up, in, and out, up being our relationship with God, in being our relationship of loving one another, out being our willingness to go out and reach the last and the lost. We know the up we will do forever and ever. We know the in we will do forever and ever. The out is only for this life and this time period. We will not do the outward orientation of helping people believe and follow Jesus in the life to come. That's an assignment that is for the here and the now only. This is why there's urgency to the mission of reaching people with the gospel of Jesus. The time is short. The time is now. One of the last things Jesus said was a commandment that we commonly refer to as the Great Commission. So let's just look at this for a moment. Matthew 28, 18 to 20. It says, "Then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, here's the assignment that I have for you as my disciples. Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit.'" Make disciples is the command here. And as you're making disciples, you're going to go and you're going to teach and you're going to baptize. "And teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you, and surely I'm with you always to the very end of the age." This is commonly referred to as the Great Commission. When we're in heaven with Jesus for eternity, we will no longer need to reach people with the gospel. We will no longer make new disciples. We will no longer baptize people representing the forgiveness of their sin. The Great Commission that we read here in Matthew 28 is a great commission for this life only. And this is why we also say there's a new Great Commission for every generation. This generation, those of us who are living today, God calls us to reach out to people around us and help them turn their lives to Jesus. We need to reach people around us because once we die, we no longer have that opportunity to reach them. Or once they die, we no longer have that opportunity to reach them. Those of us living today, this generation, we can't do anything about reaching people in the past who have already died. We can't do anything about reaching people in the future generations, because we won't be living among them. We can only be accountable for doing the things God calls us to do in this generation. That's why we say every generation is a new Great Commission. And today, we have our Great Commission. But we don't have much time left. We will pass shortly and soon. Today, people are passionate about accumulating wealth. People are passionate about their sports. People are passionate about their politics. People are passionate about their doctrinal preferences. And so many other things that can often divide us and numb our passion for loving people and seeing people believe and follow Jesus. God calls us to worship Him and be united as we do that, and we'll do that forever. God calls us to love one another and be united together as we do that, and we'll do that for forever and ever. But God also calls us to the mission of reaching people around us with Jesus and be united together as we do it, because this is the only time we will ever live out the Great Commission. It will not be a part of our eternal future. We can't afford And we don't have time to be splintered and divided and lose our focus on the mission that God has called us to of reaching people with the love of Jesus. We don't have much time left. The clock is ticking. Every day that goes by is one day closer to you and me leaving this world and passing into the next life. Every day that goes by is one day closer to the people around you passing from this life to the next. You see, sports and wealth and politics and doctrinal preferences and so many other things are all fine. We just must not let any of them become more important than the need to love people and help them believe and follow Jesus. Jesus says in Matthew 16, "What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world and all that the world has to offer, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul?" Tell me something more important than the destiny of someone's soul. Right now, I just want you to pause, and I want you to think of those around you that still need to surrender to Jesus in faith. Think of family members, friends, co-workers, neighbors. Just allow the Spirit to bring to mind faces and names of those that you know who need Jesus, who need His forgiveness and His presence and His power. Tell me something more important than the destiny of their soul. During Jesus' last days, His longest recorded prayer in Scripture is found in John 17, and it was a prayer about unity. And here's what He says, part of what He said, John 17, 20, 21. "My prayer is not for them alone," that is the church. "I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, the Great Commission, that all of them may be one." I'm praying the church will be one, unified. "Father, just as you are in me and I'm in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you've sent me," so that more and more people will believe and follow Jesus. May they be one, not divided, so that more and more people would follow and believe in Jesus. So we see clearly Jesus prayed for His church that they would be unified, so that the mission of reaching people with the gospel would not be compromised or jeopardized. Some of our leaders at Grace here over the last year have been learning about a significant move of God in India right now, where tens of thousands are coming to faith regularly and thousands of churches are being planted. And we've had the privilege of talking to one of the leaders of that move of God in India, and he said that they train every single person who comes to faith to put a few simple rhythms in their lives, which helps keep them unified around the mission. And as we've been interacting and understanding how they're training their new disciples and the rhythms that they're training them to live out, it's been really, really fascinating. Let me just tell you some of the main rhythms that they train their new disciples in how to live. Daily time with God in Scripture and devotional prayer. Daily prayer for people of peace, that is people who need Jesus, both your permanent relationships, people you know, and passing acquaintances, people you may just bump into throughout your day. Praying every day for those people. Weekly, praying once a week, and fasting for people of peace and for a revival, a breakout of many, many people coming to faith. Once a week, they're training their people to pray, to fast and pray. Weekly, once a week, gathering with other believers to focus on up and out, relationship with God, relationship with one another, and reaching out to others. So a weekly gathering with believers in those areas. A weekly corporate prayer time, again for people of peace, and again praying for revival. And then lastly here, a weekly prayer walk search for people of peace. In other words, you go out and you pray and you ask God to give you opportunities to interact with people, just to be able to pray for them or share the gospel or just be able to interact and draw them to Jesus. So these areas of rhythms, and this is one of the reasons why they're seeing this explosion of so many people coming to faith. And it's been really, really both encouraging to me and convicting to me when I look at my own rhythms and I compare it to this. And it's really encouraged me, especially as you look at these, especially in the area of prayer. I mean, praying every day for specific names, praying every day for people of peace, praying and fasting for revival and for people to come to faith. We see the outward orientation of the Great Commission, and we know that the time is now. We're not going to be doing this in eternity, but God has called us to have this focus and this mission, and we need to be unified together. And here's what happens. The more you pray for people who need Jesus, for people of peace, the more sensitive you are to engage. The more you pray, the more open you are to love people. The more you pray, the less willing you're to let anything come in the way of unity in the body of Christ around mission. For the sake of urgency and for the sake of unity around mission, would you be willing to pray, maybe even put one of these rhythms or part of one of these rhythms in your own practice? Praying more regularly for people who need Jesus, for opportunities to engage them, and to pray for revival. That God would break out and we would see so many people come to faith. Let me end by sharing just a story. Many of you heard that we lost a dear church member last month, a dear family member and brother in Christ, Jim Hoare. Jim came to faith back in 2002 at 59 years old, was baptized at Grace, and his life was never the same. He grew in his faith. He shared the gospel with so many of his family and friends. And he also became the maintenance man at our East Site building. Last month, he was at a restaurant eating breakfast with his wife and daughter and son-in-law, came home, just a normal day. And within just a couple of hours of being home, or maybe even sooner, he instantly died. No warning. His time was up. We miss him so much. I miss him so much. His wife and kids and grandkids are still grieving his loss, but also celebrating because they have confidence he was a follower of Jesus and is now with Jesus. This is how fast life passes from this life to the next, in a moment, often completely unexpected. How much time do you think you have? How much time do you have the Great Commission? Once you pass, the Great Commission is over. That assignment is over. The assignment is only for this life. We have a very brief period of time here. I want to show you a video of Jim's daughter, Ange, who not only shared her dad's spiritual journey, but took the time to make a plea to everyone who listened at the funeral to turn to Jesus as well. Let's listen as she shares.
So my dad's spiritual journey started in Fort Branch, Indiana, where he was born, and his parents took him to church It was when he was 13 that he moved to Fort Wayne. And of course, when he got to Fort Wayne, he met tons of friends, got involved in sports, and decided at that point that he was not going to go to church. He believed in God, he just did not have a relationship with Jesus at that point in time. When my dad married my mom, they joined my mom's church. And again, my dad went to church and believed in God, still did not have a personal relationship with Jesus. And it was not because of the church he grew up in or the church he joined with my mom. It had nothing to do with those churches. My dad just had not made the spiritual journey and connection with Jesus for some reason at that time in his life. Like every family, there were trials. Navistar went on strike. That was very hard on our family. When Navistar decided to move to Springfield, again, those brought challenges and different kinds of brokenness into our family. Raising 4 daughters brought all kinds of brokenness along with parenting. It was in his late 50s that a situation came to happen that brought my dad to his knees, and he decided at that point in time that he wanted to pursue a relationship with Jesus. He went home, asked my mom if she'd be willing to switch churches. She said yes. They started attending Grace Gathering, and my dad met Chris Norman, and Chris decided to ask him if he would do the Seeking God study, which is a Bible study, an intro into who Jesus was. It was during this study that my dad realized that when God created the world, he created it perfectly. According to Genesis 1:31, it was good just the way he created it. It was perfect. There was no sickness, no mourning, no death, no sin. It was good just the way God made it. The fall of man happened, and in entered sin, and that is all the brokenness that we experience today. And everybody experiences brokenness. Wasn't just him. It's not just you or me. It's everybody experiences the effect of sin in the world. When he started figuring out that this brokenness could be taken on by Jesus, he started having the hope that he was looking for. In Romans 10:9-10, it says, "If you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is with your heart that you believe and are justified, and it is with your mouth that you profess your faith and are saved." And that's what my dad did. In the late 50s, my dad became a totally new person. The old was gone and the new had come, and it was evident to all who saw him. A much gentler, kinder, generous man who was worried about his family and his friends and their relationship with Jesus. I know that many times my dad was witnessing to people about who Jesus was and how he had changed his life. And if you would like to honor my dad, we are going to have Seeking God studies in the back of church. If you want to honor his memory, you would pick one up and do one. You can do it by yourself, you can do it with another person, but he would be very, very happy if somebody here found out who Jesus was just because of his death.
Well, what powerful words that were shared at Jim's funeral. We had stacks of Seeking God studies around the cafe lobby area. And we found out a week later, after we counted how many were missing, that actually 30 Seeking Gods were taken that day at the funeral. And we're praying that more and more people, as they heard the gospel and as they know the love Jesus has for every single person, that many from that funeral and from Jim's death would turn their lives to Jesus and believe. Think about those in your life right now who need Jesus. Family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, even as we interact with people around us, the time is now. We must be unified together. We can't get divided. The stakes are too high. How are you willing to increase your urgency, to increase your prayer for people who need Jesus? Let's just take a moment and just do some listening prayer as we allow the Spirit to speak directly to us and as we make some commitments going forward from today. So let's just listen here for a couple of minutes. And so, Lord, thank you so much for the ways in which your mercy has been revealed to us. And I just pray that anyone that's listening today online, that maybe today's the day of their salvation. Maybe today's the day where they say, you know what, I don't know how much time I have left. I need to turn my life to Jesus today and believe and follow him. And I just pray that if there's anyone listening that needs to make that decision, that today would be the day they make that decision, and that they would be baptized and begin following Jesus, and also begin helping others believe and follow Jesus. Lord, show us how we can have greater urgency in our lives, praying more regularly, praying more fervently, being more open, being more sensitive, being willing to be bold in our love and our willingness to share the gospel and Jesus' love. Lord, we want to see a revival among us of so many people turning to Jesus and believing and following him. We pray that you'd work through us in the short amount of time that we have as we follow you in these things. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, blessings to you. If today's the day that you've made the decision to believe and follow Jesus, we would love if you would share that with us. We'd love to hear that and bless you and be in contact with you. We'll see you next week. Take care and God bless.